Okay, so today we're going to be talking about renting versus owning and which one is better and why. There are various takes on this, and it's really dependent on your situation and the type of future you think you're going to have, whether you're, just a young person or you're just an older person who's looking, for something more stable in a fixed location. As stated, there are pros and cons, but the first really has to do with your stage of life. If you're someone who's younger and you're more mobile, then it's typically better to rent at least temporarily. My take on it is I'd rather be an owner, which I'll get into a bit later. But this is just one half of the situation or the argument, so to say. Renting is good if you're someone who's mobile. You're looking to relocate because of work. You haven't exactly found a long-term job or a long-term location that you like that has all the needs and the flexibility that you like. Then it's good in that situation. It could also be good if you're short on money. So if you're someone who, your income kind of fluctuates and it's not a stable check week in, week out, or month in, month out, then it's good for you then. Um, and this is quite simply because although both can be fixed, mortgage payments can be variable as well. So depending on the interest rate, it could either go up or go down. So it's to your benefit if you can, find a low rent place where, you can at least afford like the basic living standards. Now, there's the city you choose to live in plays a big role as well. Um, Usually cities with more capital, more jobs. The rent tends to be higher. Population is also higher, so there's a scarcity there as well. But generally speaking, the bigger the city, the higher the rent will be. There are a few exceptions, unless the city is doing very poorly, taxes aren't being paid, etc. But generally speaking, the bigger the city, the more you're going to pay. It does come with its perks as well, such as better living conditions, better restaurants, etc. So all those amenities are there, but on a general note, it's usually more pricey. Not only that, when you're renting, it's also good to look at the city because bigger cities will tend to build up instead of out. There are a few other ones that build out, such as like if you're living, in LA, for example, or if you're in like Paris. Typically, bigger cities, some of them are sprawling, but most of them tend to build up instead of build out. From my research, I found that this to be the case because they can charge more per unit, and not only that, there's more people going into these units as well. So it's a win-win for the developers. They get to build something that's established for the city that's going to be there for a number of years. Condos aren't typically something that just go away. They're there for a long period of time, and overall, I think it's a good investment for the city because the typically the maintenance isn't a lot. Each person's paying for their own unit. There's no lawnmowers or things like that that you'd have to take care of with the residential property. So it's good in that respect. But for a renter, definitely it's a accessible option because most condos are in cities, and that's typically where young people settle when they're just trying to find a job or just starting their career. The cities are usually the better portions as opposed to residential living. Residential living does have its upsides and owning as well. You can own condos as well, but owning typically has its benefits. The One of the main ones for me is the appreciation. So typically, the longer you hold it, the higher in value it goes. It has been shown real estate does go up in price over the years, so it's better that way for you to, buy and pay it down. So as you're paying it down, the higher the equity is. Another thing too is when you rent, aside from the financial standpoint, you have to take into the account the type of building and the people you're going to be with. It's quite difficult, especially for young people, to find the perfect spot where the lighting, from the lighting to the living room, everything's really just up to par. You're typically going to be moving in with somebody, especially if it's in a bigger city. So you're going to be sharing a room. So these are other factors that need to be taken into account. It's not really something that's going to be a perfect fit from the beginning, unless you're someone who really takes the time, is patient, and finds the exact perfect spot. And even then, there's always going to be, ups and downs. So rooming with people is a big nuisance. So you really have to be careful who you choose to live with, which is one downside of renting. If you choose to live with a friend, unless you've lived with them before, conflicts can arise as well. And then there's the second thing is a landlord issue. Some landlords are good. Some of them are just owned by a property manager. Some are owned by the landowners themselves, and they really aren't the best conflict resolution people for some of them. So it's really a mixed bag. You don't exactly know what you're getting. And even when you do, it's really hard to see the full picture until you live there and then you examine the community. So there are certain risks with renting. And then the other part of it too is that there's, aside from having a place to stay, there's not really an advantage of you staying there longer, aside from the solidarity and the pride of saying you have your own place. It's really something that is there's no long-term gain. The gain is of course you having a place to stay, but it's really better for the person who owns the property because maybe not right now, but in 20 to 30 years from now, that property will be an asset for them that they're paying little, if at all, to maintain because the tenants are maintaining it. So I think it's good to at least try when you're young to get a property of your own, or at least start the process, because the longer you wait, really the more you're losing, so to say, because although there are rent control laws, the same thing with prices of homes and condos, they all tend to go up over the years. So the longer you wait to get in the market, the higher the barrier of entry is going to be, and you're really going to have to search for those loopholes to get in. Now, another benefit to owning is tax deductions. So there are a lot of tax deductions that you can get for owning. A second thing that also plays a role with this advantage to owning as opposed to renting is you get to fix up the property as well. So if it's something that you want to change, you want to change a room, create more space by taking down a wall. These sorts of things, renovations, they can actually increase the property. So it's better for you to take advantage of that, because the quicker you do that, and then if your situation changes, then you're left off in a better situation as opposed to just giving your money out to somebody else, and not really getting anything in exchange. So it's not really advocated for, but there is a misconception that it's hard to get in, and a large part of that comes from a misunderstanding. So most people who typically rent, they haven't really looked into other options, such as moving out of the area. This could be due to their job situation, but generally speaking, there's really no thought that goes into it, because if you were to look and be just a little bit flexible, you'd probably find something that fits your needs, and not only fits your needs, is either going to be the same or less than what you're paying. So there are other precautions that you need to take care of, such as insurance and things like that. But overall, the pros certainly outweigh the cons. And for your situation, I personally advocate for at least trying to find something. And then even if you decide to leave, you can always the Airbnb the properties. That those are very new options nowadays that weren't available 10, 20 years ago. You can use Craigslist to find someone to stay in the property and pay for it. So you're not really left at a disadvantage. The only disadvantage I would see is that the money that you put into the property for down payment wouldn't be liquid, so you can't just take that money and use it somewhere else. But that's the same thing for renting. So overall, I think it does outweigh it, but it is certainly dependent on your situation. But once again, a large part of this comes back to a little bit of misinformation and understanding. So let me know which one you think is best, and see you guys next episode.